Today we're going to be doing a tour of the vac truck. We'll be walking you through our inspection sheet. Also be discussing some details around maintenance, preventative, and also how the truck works so that you can fully understand this vehicle and be able to run it safely and effectively. So we're going to start with the front of the truck. As you would have done getting your professional driver's license, it's required to do a walk around, understand the mechanical systems of the truck, ensure they're working properly to make sure that it's safe to be on the road. So obviously lights are a very important aspect. So we're going to start with this corner of the truck and systematically work down the truck so that we're ensuring all aspects are being considered. So I'm just going to turn the lights on in the truck here. So as I stand in front of the truck, I'll visually inspect that the cab clearance lights are working. Both headlights are working. As we do the walk around and look at lights, we also can inspect for any body damage. As we're in the north, we run cold winter fronts to ensure the cab and the engine maintain proper heat. We can adjust flaps to adjust that heat in the truck. Make sure that your license plate is on and clearly seen. We'll go back to the hood and open it so we can start checking fluid levels and ensure that all those are correct. So ensure latches are both open. I prior opened the other latch. So now I'll walk to the front, grab the front of the hood. It's quite heavy, so you got to be careful on how you open it. Make sure it doesn't slam down. We're going to come to the engine bay. We have fluid levels. We'll have power steering. We have windshield washer fluid. And we also inspect our linkages for steering while we're here. Ensure that brake travel is appropriate. Steering linkages are all in check. There's no broken leaf springs. The shock is in good order. It's not loose. This time, pull the dipstick to ensure that your engine oil is at the accurate depth. You would use a rag, wipe that off, make sure the indicator is showing the appropriate level. Also check your transmission fluid at the same time, in the same manner, ensuring that it's at its proper level. While standing next to the engine bay, we'll also inspect the fan belt, look for any indication of oil leaks. As I talked about prior, inspect mechanical linkages, hoses. You want to err on the side of caution and look at more rather than less. While we're on this corner of the truck, can also inspect tire for wear, tread depth. This tire shows that the wear indicators have a long way to go till the tire needs replacing. We physically check the wheel nuts to ensure they're not loose. While you're down here, you can look at your mud flaps, make sure they're good, there's no body damage, the bumper's not dented. We'll walk around the front of the truck and go to the other side of the engine bay to inspect that wheel and make sure all mechanical linkages are good, no indication of any other oil leaks or coolant leaks. Now we're on the passenger side of the engine bay. As we did the wheel inspection on the other side, you can ensure that the tire is in good condition, the rims in good condition, and the lug nuts are tight. While we're here, we can see our lights are on, our bumper's in good condition. We can look at our mechanical items underneath the hood, which we have the turbo. Everything is intact, there's no loose fasteners. Our tubing to the intercooler, they're intact. There's no abrasions, no cuts. We can see our fan belt from here. It's in good condition and on. Our coolant lines, they're intact, no visible leaks. Check our level through our sight glass. That shows that it's the appropriate level. We'll go look down in here. You might not be able to see it all from that vantage point, but our springs, there's no broken springs. Bolts all look good. Brake airlines look good. All connections look good. No visible signs of leaks. So now I'll close the hood and we'll make our way down the side of the truck. It's important that you check all items as you walk around the truck so that you're not forgetting anything. Ensure latches are closed. So while on the passenger side of the truck, we've now closed the hood, ensured the latch is properly latched. We can inspect the door, the operation of the handle. Door seems tight, hinges are intact. We can focus on the glass, make sure there's no cracks, pits, paint's in good condition. To my left hand, we have the exhaust. The grab handle's good, the guard's intact, the exhaust pipe is intact. Also inspect the steps. They're solid, grip is in place. While we're on this side of the truck, we can also ensure that the mirrors are proper. A good reminder is to always make sure that your mirrors are properly adjusted. So each driver might need a little different setting, depends on your height and how you sit in your seat. Mirrors are in good condition, no cracks, rubbers are good. You can see the bolts are tight, brackets are firm, door is good. Clearance light is on, working properly, no damage. While we're on the passenger side of the vehicle, we finished inspecting the door, mirrors, steps. Now you'll see on my right, we have the red tank, which is the hydraulic tank. And on the side, you'll have a sight glass. It shows that the oil's in good level. We also have a fill cap on top. Hoses are in check. There's no visible signs of leaks. On this particular model, we have a hydraulic cooler. The hoses are good. Fan blades are intact. Mounting bolts are all tight and good. Below that, we have the DEF tank. Newer equipment requires this fluid as part of the emissions control system. So on the dash, there will be a gauge indicating level. This is where you would fill that fluid. As we move towards the back of the truck, below the hydraulic cooler, on this particular vac truck, we have what we call a Massport Stink Box. That's not the technical name, but we insert fluid below this cap, which helps the exhaust from the vac pump to not smell as unsightly for any passerbys or residents in your community. As we make our way down the side of the truck, we have a fuel tank to inspect. We can ensure that our lights, hoses, mud flaps, wheels are all in check. So we have hoses laying on the side of the truck. They're well below the sideboard of that fender tray, so nothing could fall off or is dangerous. If you're at highway speeds, you would want to ensure that these items would be bungeed down or properly strapped down. So we have mud flap, that's intact and good. From this vantage point, we can also see the fuel tank. Its saddles, caps are all intact. Of course, the level of fuel needs to be checked daily as per your sheet, and that will be on a gauge inside your dash. While we're here, we can inspect the condition of our tank. This is one of the most important aspects of a vac truck, as that tank is a pressurized vessel. So condition, any signs of bulging, cracking, paint flaking are very important to note and report immediately to your supervisor or manager to have inspected by a professional. As I walk towards the back of the truck, we have dual set of wheels on this side. Tires look good. Sidewalls have no abrasions, gouges. Need to check the lug nuts, physically check each one. It's very important. These are heavy tires. We don't want them to come off. Very unsafe if they do. As we're here, we can also inspect our clearance lights. Shows that it's in good working order, secure. We're now at the back of the truck. We need to inspect our rear bumper, tow hooks to ensure they're in good working order, both sets of tail lights. On this particular truck, we have an upper and a lower set of tail lights. As you'll see, the upper set of tail lights we put on our trucks as the lower set fill up with snow because of where we're working. It's always important throughout your shift to make sure that your lights are wiped off from snow and debris so that any other vehicles on the road can clearly see you, especially in the dark winter months. Lights are on, working intact. While we're at the back of the truck, we can inspect clearance lights up top, condition of the rear of the tank. it all looks good. There's no cracking, no bulging, no deformation. Our rear access panel, its bolts are tight, hinge pins in place. Need to check all fasteners. Inspect all valves, handles, condition, no signs of leaks. Earlier we discussed coolant being circulated to the rear of the tank to keep the truck active and working and from preventing freezing of the valves during the cold winter months. Here you'll see the two coolant hoses that run to this heated collar that make this valve operational during the cold. So there's no leaks, everything's secured nice. Our valve handle for the main vac hose is in place, and also there's no leaks. And we'll inspect this end of our vac hose. This is the hose that you would attach to a tank or to a house or building that you would be pumping out. Clamps are in place. Everything looks good. Nothing's broken. As we work away from the back end of the truck, we're now down the driver's side. Check both corner clearance lights. They're on, secure, working. We'll follow the side of our truck. We can check the hose, reflective strips. While we're here, we would do the same inspection of our wheels, ensure that the lug nuts are tight, tires are in good condition, rims have no damages. Ensure that your side marker light is working. On a big truck, when you're making corners, side marker lights are very important as it's longer than a typical vehicle. Above the marker, we'll inspect our house end of our vac hose. This piece gets a ton of wear as it's used every time a connection is made to a building to pump out the sewage. So you want to make sure it's freely moving, ensure that the clamps are intact. This is our house end, as we refer to it. This is a Pearson ball type coupler. This piece gets used a lot. It's very important that it's in good working order. All linkages are free to move. There's no cracks. Other linkages are all working good. As we can see in the end of the hose, we have an O-ring that's in here to ensure there's no leaks in the connection while you're performing your pump out. This hose can shake and have a certain amount of violent movement, so it's good to ensure that you're in safe distance from the hose so it can't smack your leg and that it's free to move. The other aspect of this scenario, while it's pumping off, you want to ensure that the clamp is securely fastened. On this hose, our operator has placed a bungee cord to ensure that that lever can't come up on its own. In case it did open that connection while pumping out, you would have the potential for a leak or spray of raw sewage, which poses a health and safety hazard, both to the worker and the environment. If you ever do have any spills, it's important that you report the spill to the proper authorities within your local community. We'll work down the front of the truck. We have a toolbox. We want to ensure that the latch works properly. Everything's secure. Our mud flaps in place. Objects on the deck are safe, not going to fall off. Up here, we're inspecting the access ladder to the top of the tank. We want to ensure that the rungs are secure, there's no cracks, no bends. While we move down the tank, we have our indicator for the level of the tank. So while you're filling the tank, it's going to move accordingly to how full the tank is. Top being full, bottom being empty. Each truck might have a little bit different of a scenario, so it's important that you are familiar with your exact vac truck. Below the deck on this side of the truck, we have all major components for the vac pump. This is one of the most important components on a vac truck. It's what creates vacuum in the tank to ensure that fluid is evacuated from the tank that you're sucking out of, and the fluid can then travel into the tank on the truck. So there's a number of components that make up this system. Obviously, you're drawing air out of the tank on your truck, so you need to ensure that the fluid is removed out of that air so that your vac pump is protected. This particular vac pump is a vane type vac pump, which requires maintenance. It also uses oil on a daily basis. We'll view the oil tank as we go further along in our inspection. My hand is on the main hosing that uses suction and pressure. And one might say, well, vac pump only uses suction. But when offloading, we use a small amount of low pressure to help evacuate the fluid out of the tank. So it's important to inspect your hoses to make sure they're not concaved or blown up, as we've also used pressure. So if replacing these hoses, it's important to use a hose that's appropriate for vacuum pressure so that it doesn't collapse. That, in this case, this one is reinforced with rubber and a metal wire inside of it to prevent that collapsing. We have hydraulic hoses in the same area, which run the hydraulic motor that drives the vac pump. So ensure there's no damages on the hoses, no leaks, no abrasions. If there are, they must be serviced or replaced. This component is in line with the main vac hose on the exhaust side. It's got a moisture drain on the bottom that must be drained daily. And you'll want to use a bucket to collect any fluid. So same thing, ensure that the fasteners are secure, tank is in good condition, and hoses are all attached properly. We'll now move towards our vac pump and look at its valving, and we'll explain a little bit more about the maintenance and operation of the vac pump itself. We place buckets under each tank so that they can be drained daily at the end of your shift. This helps to prevent freezing the following shift and also protect the vac pump so there's no fluid in the vac pump. We'll now move towards our vac pump and get a little more into depth on explanation of how it works and maintenance required. Now we're going to describe the routing of the piping for the main vac system. On top of the tank, you'll see a hose that comes out of the top of the tank, and attached to that tank in the top of the hose is what we call the primary shutoff. In that primary shutoff, there's a stainless steel ball that prevents fluid from being sucked up. So as the tank gets full, the fluid floats that bowl to the top, which cuts off vacuum. So we'll go back to explaining the routing of how the vac system works. So during normal operation, prior to the tank being full, vacuum is pulled from the tank via this hose through the primary shutoff. We then come to this red canister, which is called our secondary shutoff. It also has another ball check inside for a secondary point and level of protection for the vac pump. So we want to ensure that fasteners are tight, our sight glass is intact and not leaking, all welds, paint are in good condition. There's two other aspects to the secondary shutoff. We have a safety relief valve here with the blue handle on top. That's an item that if it gets overpressured, that's going to release, so none of the system would be in danger of too much pressure. We also have a gauge on the top of the secondary shutoff. Right now it's obviously reading 0 because we're at atmospheric pressure. It's going to read vacuum while you're on vacuum mode, and will also tell you pressure while you're unloading to ensure that the system's well in check. This unit is heated. We can't see the coolant lines as they're mounted in behind, but you want to ensure that there's no coolant leaks and that the system's operating. The reason it's heated is so that it doesn't freeze up during cold weather. We'll now go to the bottom of this secondary shutoff, which is hard piped to our vac pump. My hand's on the main valve, which diverts vacuum or pressure for normal operation of the truck. So right now it's in the off position. Later on in our training video, we'll walk through hooking up to a house or a building and showing how that handle works. So while that handle's turned, in this direction, it's going to create flow now, which the vac pump is pulling air through the two systems I just explained and exhausting through our other canister our muffler that we talked about earlier. And quite a bit earlier in our training video, we looked at the stink box made by Massport, which is the final exhaust point. One other note to keep in mind, we also have a drain on our secondary shutoff, which uses the same bucket, must be drained daily, along with our muffler that had a drain as well. Vac pumps require a certain amount of maintenance. As mentioned prior, it's a vane type pump, so there's inspection ports, and it's important to refer to the manufacturer's manual to perform required maintenance and inspections as per their recommended time intervals. As you have a gauge on your secondary shutoff, that is a great indicator to the performance of your vac pump if it's unable to pull as much vacuum pressure as normal. While we're down here, we'll inspect our oil tank. As the vane pump requires lubrication, it's very important that this tank is topped up at either the beginning or the end of each shift and checked daily in the morning so that your vac pump doesn't run dry. If it runs dry, the vanes can prematurely wear. It's a very expensive component and hard to get, so you want to prevent that. There's a sight glass on the end, so view your sight glass to ensure that it's within proper level and that it's full. For the vac pump, to ensure that it has proper lubrication, you'll see the sight glass at the end of my finger. You need to ensure that this tank is filled and full throughout your shift, and must be checked at the beginning of your shift. In order to put oil in the oil tank, there's a cap at the top which needs to be removed and filled. There's also requirements for how much oil is used on a vac pump, so it's good to keep track of how much oil is being consumed during a regular shift over how many hours. As we move up from the vac pump, we have our hydraulic pressure gauge for the main system. So it's important that this gauge is operating and monitored throughout your shift to make sure that the system is running at proper pressure. While we're on this side of the truck, we can also inspect the driver's side of the hydraulic tank. Of course, the location of the hydraulic tank might change depending on the model and type of build of the truck. We have an access panel into the hydraulic tank. Very important to have that access panel accessible for maintenance. If by chance you have a major hydraulic component failure, the access panel of the hydraulic tank must be removed, all oil drained, and tank cleaned. When a component fails, there's a chance of foreign object metal filings to be introduced into the system. It's very important that you change all filters and get that tank 110% clean so that you're not going to introduce any of those pieces of matter into your hydraulic system. As we're under the cab on the driver's side, we have the air tank, which needs to be drained daily and ensure that the drain valve is functioning properly, tank is in good condition, mounted appropriately. Here we have the master switch for the main power to the truck. Very important that this switch is turned off. As you notice, there's a hole in the switch which can have a lock put through it, and you need to lock out and properly tag that master switch if you're performing any maintenance on the truck to prevent anybody from starting or moving the truck while maintenance is being performed. It's important to check the suspension hangers and brackets. All bolts, no cracks, everything's in good condition. Might not be able to see, but there's airbags below here, brake pods, drive shaft. Make sure those are inspected daily. So while inspecting tires, it's important to look at tread depth. Make sure there's no major cuts or abrasions on the tread pattern of the tire. Inside of the cab, we also have to ensure all gauges are working appropriately. Glass is in good condition, no cracks in your windshield. Make sure all paperwork is filled out for the day. Make sure that your brake pedal, fuel throttle pedal are working properly. There's nothing that could obstruct safe driving throughout your shift. Now that we've wrapped up our daily inspection and breakdown on the vac system, we'll talk a little bit about preventative maintenance on a truck of this nature. It's very important that all aspects of the truck are maintained properly and on a scheduled basis. We want to run a preventative maintenance program rather than a reactive maintenance program. So this equipment provides essential services for the communities we live in. So it's very important that we have the proper maintenance completed in a preventative maintenance basis rather than reactive. That truck needs to be ready to go when it's required. Engine oil changes, transmission services, hydraulic oil changes, greasing, those need to be done at the proper time, on the proper time frames. You can consult with the manufacturer, the company that you bought your vehicle, to get those requirements sent to you. And it should be performed by a licensed mechanic. Many of the tasks can be done by the operator. Greasing of the truck on daily, weekly, and monthly basis is required. It's always good to remember that sometimes over-greasing can be as bad as under-greasing. So important as an operator or a maintenance technician to understand the actual required greasing schedules and the amount of grease that should be applied. Tires are a high wear on a truck like this because it can carry a lot of weight. Also very important that while carrying that weight, you have a moving fluid in the tank, which can lead to chance of rollover. So it's important to make sure that you avoid sharp angles while driving, more from a side-to-side basis than a front-on or back-up. Other than that, the inspection is probably the most important aspect of your day-to-day operation. If your operators are in tune with their inspection and their truck and understand how the components work properly, the quicker that any malfunctioning points or parts of the truck are brought to attention of a maintenance personnel, they'll be able to ensure that the proper repairs are made on time. This will ensure that the truck is operating safely on the road, not just for the driver, but also for the general public. We have a lot of loved ones in our communities, and we would never want to put any of them at risk.